Hello fellow woodworkers, and welcome to the second video in the series on the garage workshop on maintenance. This week I'm going to be tackling my most challenging project yet. Changing the blade in my Titan bandsaw. Roll the intro. So fellow woodworkers, this is the job that I have been putting off, and the thing that I'm most worried about doing, which is changing the blade in my Titan bandsaw. I've had the bandsaw about 18 months, maybe going on 2 years now, and ever since I've had it, the blade has just not been very good. It's a very thin blade. It's the blade that comes with it as standard. I bought the bandsaw in screw fix, and there is a huge amount of play in the band to the point where when I'm cutting a straight piece of wood, there'll be quite a lot of travel in the band, and it will very, very rarely give me straight cuts. And that's despite fiddling with all of the tensioning and the guide rails that come with the bandsaw. It's just not a great blade. And having done quite a bit of research on this on the internet, it's quite a common issue with the standard blade that comes with the Titan bandsaw. So I've wanted to change it for a while, but when I got the bandsaw and I unboxed it in transit, a lot of the mechanism had been disrupted, and it took me about 4 hours to even get the blade tensioned to the point where I could use it, because obviously I'm a total novice, no experience of using a bandsaw before I got it out of the box. So this is the one thing that I am not looking forward to doing. And actually there's not a lot of videos on YouTube or on the internet that explains how you change these bandsaw blades. There's quite a few from other people. I know Peter Millard's got a whole series on cheaper bandsaws, and in his video he changes this bandsaw effortlessly, which this is the garage workshop. That isn't going to work for me, is it? It's going to be pain and torture all the way through, I'm sure, but it is something that I need to do. And I've actually bought a wider, thicker bandsaw blade for this. It's a much sturdier one, and I'll put a description in the I'll put a link in the description, sorry, to show you what it is. And it comes from a company that sell a lot of bandsaw blades, particularly for the Titan model. It's a much thicker blade, and it's wider as well, slightly wider. So I'm hopeful that this isn't going to be the overwhelmingly painful torture that I'm expecting it to be. So let's get going. We'll take the old blade off, I'll open the new blade and show you it, and let's see if we can change this bandsaw blade with very little fuss and hassle. Fingers crossed. One of the really good things about this bandsaw is access to the blade is actually really good. I know on some it can be quite difficult and you haven't got as great access, but on this Titan one, actually accessing the blade is really, really good. It's just a case of popping open 2 screws and you're into the main bit. Once it was open, I just got the hoover out and gave it a quick once over. I was really surprised actually how dusty this was on the inside, because this has been used on so few occasions. I mean, I've probably only used this bandsaw maybe 4 or 5 times since I've had it in well, what is now, I checked, it's over 2 years I've had it, but I was really surprised at actually how dusty it was. And I have got a little plastic like valve on the back. Valve's not the right word, but I've got a little sort of plastic adapter which I created on the 3D printer that fits the end of my hoover. But to be honest with you, I only did that recently, and I probably haven't used that. I probably only used it the last time I had it. But I got the hoover in there and got in and out on all of the ring, both of the spinning rings. I did notice when I was doing it that there is a bit of sort of ground-in sawdust. You can hear it when the wheels turn with the blade. But to be honest with you, they're noisy machines anyway, so it's not a worry. Okay, so straight away you can see one of the problems. The blade of the band is right on the edge. In fact, it's overhanging on the wheel all the way round. Now, that's despite this being tensioned with the band exactly in the middle. Now, there's only 1 or 2 things that could have happened. Either I didn't tension it properly in the first place, which being me, I could quite believe, or in the process of building this flip-top cart for the bandsaw, it's been shifted, because you can see here it's actually almost completely on the guide. Same over here. And if you take this out, which actually that shouldn't even come off. Oops. You can see, look, that shouldn't come off there. It's actually broken off. You can also see here, it's right outside the plastic, which is a bit of a concern. Now, I haven't used the bandsaw in quite a long time, so no issues or no danger of anything untoward happening. But even on the piece of plastic, look, you can see at the bottom there, it looks like the plastic's actually been cut by the blade. In fact, you can see quite a bit of the blade has been taken off there. So, a lot, I think, as I expected, quite a lot more to do here. The other thing is this tensioning knob that is on the top. I don't think it actually works. It doesn't do anything that I'm aware of. And if you do it or undo it, it doesn't really change the tensioning in it at all. So if you can see, I'm undoing it there, and absolutely nothing is happening. Nothing's moving in that mechanism. Now at the back you have this tensioner and untensioner, and when you do it up, you can see there it's reduced the tension and popped the blade down, and then when you turn the handle back up, it's supposed to strengthen the tension, and actually it's just brought that down a little bit. But I'm not entirely sure that's working, because if you look at how much play there is in the blade, and that's, don't forget, this is now fully tensioned and it's popped out there. I think that's way too much. I can almost fold that in half. I don't think that's enough. I think this tensioner isn't working the way it should, because when I adjust it, yes, it pulls it down there to get the blade off, which is correct. But when I put it back there, it should pull it really, really tight. And again, it isn't. You can see there, it's not very tight at all. So let's get the blade open and have a look at what we're playing with here. Okay, so this is the replacement blade that I've bought, and it's from a company called the Bandsaw Shop. I think they're on Amazon. I will put a link in the description. Let's just get the packet open. I did buy this quite a long time ago. It has been lying around in the garage workshop for a while, and the blade is different to the blade that's currently on there. I think you'll be able to see just by holding it close to the camera how much thicker it is. So this blade is a lot thicker than the other one. This is a 9.5 mil blade, so it's just under a centimetre wide, whereas the Titan blade that is in there is obviously a lot thinner. Now this apparently is the widest blade that you can use on a Titan bandsaw, and I did a lot of research before I bought this blade. This blade is the correct blade for it, but it is right on the very edge of what the Titan can accept, and I've deliberately gone for a bigger blade because the one that's on there, as I said, it's too much play. But even when I've been cutting through relatively small bits, like 18mm bits of wood, it just has really wandered a lot in the cut, and I just don't get the feeling the blade is sort of gutsy enough. And actually, when you do research on the internet into the Titan bandsaws, lots of people do replace the blades pretty quickly. So this one in particular, hopefully, will do a little bit more, being a bit wider, and it'll be a bit sturdier. And obviously this blade is different in terms of the teeth. This is a 10 TPI blade, teeth per inch, and this one is, I want to say this one is 6 teeth per inch. So obviously you can see a lot better blade. So what I'm going to now do is just pop this blade off, take this blade off and just offer it up, and hopefully at least it should get on and fit, and then we can have a look at what's going on with that tightening, tensioning setup at the top, and obviously get the guys back in. The only other thing I will have to do is just pop off this blade, and there's a little catch underneath here that you need to free in order to take the blade out, so I'll show you that now. So in order to free the blade, there is a little blade clip here which you pull across, This cover has to obviously be free for you to do that, but you pull that cover across and then you can just pop out the blade, and that's also how you can get access to the rear wheel that runs the blade underneath, and obviously they're the two fences for the bottom part of the blade. So with that off, that's the first part of getting the blade off. I now need to take out the tensioning screw on the top, which is here, which is just a wing nut. There it is, and then that should allow us to pop the blade straight out. And actually the blade is completely out this side. It's actually come out of the housing as well. So there's the old blade. So with the old blade out, I slid in the new blade, which I'm pleased to say wasn't too wide for the two wheels, which I was worried about. But as you can see, I really struggled due to the tensioner to keep the blade attached around both wheels and to keep it on the left-hand side. I know the camera angle's really not great here, so apologies for that, but it was a very delicate balance of trying to get the blade in and keep it in, and also tensioning it enough that it didn't pop out. So when I sort of got it in the top, you can see there it was out at the bottom, so to very gently loosen it to get it round onto the wheel, but then when I went to tension it, it popped out on the left-hand side. So it was quite a long process of getting the blade in before I could actually sort of start finalizing it on the wheel. And at places it was actually running sort of it was very tight on, and in other places it wasn't. So it did take a bit of finagling to get it there. Apology, I know you can't see it, but basically all I'm doing there is just making micro changes to the tensioner just to get the blade to stay on actual both without being too tight. Because of course, if you wind these blades too tight, you're under the danger of two things happening. Number one, it will stretch the blade, and number two, it puts it under too much tension, and then you risk the health and safety risk of it snapping. So after a while, as you can see, I got it on and I got it turning. So that was a really, really good thing. Okay, so I have got the belt on, which is good, but as I'm moving it, it is hanging off the edge, as you can see, and there is a sort of slight noise, like a grating noise, which could just be a bit of sawdust, but the blade is gradually working its way off the top, which obviously it shouldn't do, because as you can see from me pushing, it's under quite a fair bit of tension there. It shouldn't be doing that, and it's not doing that on the bottom. When I turn it, it's all round, it's all exactly where it should be. It just seems like it's coming off from the top. It's almost like this wheel needs to be a tiny bit further forward. But the only connections that I've got on the side is this one, which obviously raises and lowers the gap, the bandsaw gap, as you can see there, to make the gap cutting bigger. And I've got this one at the back, which lowers it. And I have got this knob, which I think just keeps the inside bit, the tensioning screw, working. So what I'm going to do is just have a little fiddle and see if I can get that blade to stay on the middle and see if there's anything I can do about that. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so quite a bit of fiddling off camera, and I've managed to pretty much, if you just look where the blade is as it spins, you can see it's pretty much staying in line. That noise you can hear, I think, is just where some of the sawdust has got in and it's grating on the wheel. I have brushed it out, but it doesn't seem to be working. But it's there, it's going, and if you look at the guide, when I spin it around, the blade's not moving much at all in the guide, which is good. So what I'm going to do now is just tension that blade. You do that here with these two little Allen keys. I'm going to tension the blade a little bit because as you can see there's a bigger gap on the left hand side than the right hand side, so I'm just going to pop that right hand side bit across and then put that one a little bit further across, and then I'm going to duplicate do the same thing underneath with the same tensioner there. So let's do that now and see how it looks at the end. Thankfully, this was a lot easier a job than I thought it was going to be. It was just a case of undoing the screws, just gently tapping over the little pins and then tightening them up again. So it's relatively straightforward, and I got it exactly where I wanted it pretty quickly. Exactly the same underneath, just easier. A little bit more difficult on the right hand side because obviously there's not a lot of room, you can see there, but really straightforward. It's just a case of undoing them, moving the pins to exactly where you want them. I gave a couple of mil or a mil either side, and that was it. Then I just closed the case and did up the screws. It actually took quite a long time. As you can see, they're really long, these screws, which I think is a good thing, but the blade was housed perfectly, so I was very happy. The next thing I did, which actually turned out to be one of the longer jobs in this, was to try and get the table, or the stand, level. It's actually quite tricky to level this up because you've only got one sort of turning knob which levels it, and there's actually quite a lot of play in it. I was really surprised. I thought it was a lot more simple, because when I actually got the saw, it was completely flat. But obviously, in building the flip top car and all the movement that the bandsaws had, it's obviously just slipped or come out of alignment. But when I did get this, it was one of the things that I tested, and the bed, the cutting bed, was absolutely flat in all directions. But as you can see, this took quite a bit of finagling to get it exactly right in both sort of dimensions, because obviously you've got horizontal and sort of vertical in terms of the pitch, and it did take quite a while to get it level on both sides. I'm pleased to say I did in the end, but it did take a while. Okay, so the blade is on, it moves, it's really well tightened, it's much tighter than it was before, and I think all of the fences above and below are exactly how they should be. So I'm just going to grab a piece of wood, pop it on, and let's see how it works. And I'm pleased to say it worked really, really well. It cut through all the material. The quality and the speed of the cut is much, much better than with the original thinner blade I had on. It was going through the wood nice and easy. I tried different types of wood, different types of cut, curve cuts, straight cuts. Worked really, really nicely, and a huge improvement on the blade that I had before by a mile. Well, I'm very pleased to say that was an absolute success. As you would have seen in the cut video, the blade is a lot straighter. There's hardly any play in it at all. There's a bit, obviously, but I've obviously tightened it down as well, so I've got the guide exactly as I want it, but there's a lot less play in it than there was in the other one. It's all stayed on the two wheels, no problem. There's a little bit of black plastic that came up when I first switched the blade on, which to me suggests that it's still rubbing on that housing. But to be honest with you, once it's done that a couple of times, it's going to wear it away, which it obviously has done now. The blade did stick a couple of times. You'll have seen in the pieces of wood, but I think that's because I was pushing too hard on it. And obviously it's not a massively powered unit, but I feel changing the blade has made a massive, massive difference, and I'm now much more confident in using the bandsaw, knowing it's not going to go anywhere and I can make more accurate cuts. And quite a lot of you pointed out in the comments on my last video on the lathe project that had I had a lathe, had I had the bandsaw, I could have whittled down some of the material. And actually the cutting gap on these Titans is actually really good. It's one of the reasons why I went for this one. But as you can see, cutting a nice amount of shapes, no problem. and obviously changing the blade was a really good thing. Now I know a lot of people regularly change the blades, but not me. That was a difficult enough process, and I'll only change it again when I have to. Thank you so much for watching this week and for watching these maintenance videos. I just want to give a special shout out to everybody who watched my lathe project fail video last week. I'll put a link up here to it if you haven't seen it. You all knew before you started watching it was going to be a complete disaster, but that didn't stop hundreds of you watching it. So I really want to say thank you for that. I really appreciate having all of your support. And also I got some absolutely fantastic feedback in the comments and some really good advice from all of you. So a huge thank you to everybody. Lots of projects coming up over the course of the summer. If this is your first time at the Garage Workshop, please can I ask you to subscribe, but please like and please leave a comment, because it helps some sort of algorithm in YouTube, which just makes it easier and better for me to make experiences like this. And also it helps you to see other videos from other similar YouTubers like myself. And there are plenty of little ones around, some of which are my subscribers if you have a look through, but there's lots around to look out. If you are a regular viewer, thank you so much for your continued support. Again, please don't forget to like and comment. I love getting your feedback. I reply to all of it, and it means a lot to me, and it really, really helps the channel. Hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll catch up with you next week. Take care, fellow woodworkers.